it is the house that I designed for Mr. Vidhu Vinod Chopra. It was a beautiful site, with water on three sides, and he is the most amazing person to work with. He's a creative genius, and he was very, very involved in the project. He's also this, really genuinely loving guy. So, I just cherish all the time I spent with him, which was a lot. That first site visit, I feel like the moment I'm on, this new site and I walk it, I feel like I just can envision, feeling that rush that it gives you, and then just that overflowing ideas that, your mind starts generating. I just love that feeling. If I wasn't an architect, I would be a potter in Auroville. I did my internship in Auroville about 20 years back, and I just have the most fond memories of the place, and I think it's really influenced my way of thinking and my practice architecture. So I just have this dream version of my life where I'm a potter and I have this open studio which is surrounded by just a forest and there's no city noise. With my hands with clay, and when I do my glaze testing, then I can see how they look in the sun. So it's a magical sort of an alternate life I have in my brain. I have a big bias towards New York City. I lived there for 10 years. It was my first home with my husband. So I would have to say New York because I just have to do justice to the city. But, New York is great. New York is great because it has, beautiful sort of modern architecture like the Guggenheim Museum to super contemporary architecture like the Frank Gehry Beekman Towers and then now the Calatravas. New York is very innovative with its architecture, and also there is a lot of freedom in the design community. So, people are not afraid to take risks. That also goes for the art community. I feel like, that gives New York that buzz. You don't have to even go into an art gallery to feel it. You can just walk the streets and you'll see something interesting. You'll see some guy dressed in some way, or some performance art happening somewhere. So I would have to say New York. Since my background is in architecture, I did my bachelor's and my master's in architecture and urban planning. My best friends are architects, so I would love to spend time with all my best friends who are now all over the world. So we're not, I'm not together with them in one city. But at the same time, I also would love to spend time with Anupama Kundu, who was an architect in Auroville while I was practicing there. And she recently put up her wall house on her Instagram, and we exchanged a few messages because that house and her practice has had a big influence on my work. She used to have a party for all the interns at her house in the summer, and that was the highlight for all the interns. And once again, it was a big highlight for me in my career. And what I would like to do with her, I believe she's in Europe somewhere now, so I would just like to walk around the city with her, and that would be amazing. A historic adaptive reuse project. Professor Dennis Frenchman at MIT, who was my advisor. And he, when I was graduating and I got a job at HUK, and I was having a chat with him, and I was just talking about career and, career trajectory and all of that, he gave me this advice. He said that, Anjali, this is your first job and not your last job. So basically the point is that, there is always room to grow. There is always room to explore and do more and do better. So at any stage, no matter what happens in life. It's not just in the architecture community. I think it's everywhere, but I just hope that women would be better champions for women. and grow as a community. So I wish that the architecture and design community, women in the architecture and design community would come together as a community and really prop each other up. It would be very well lit, airy, daylit, something that's liberating, freeing, meditative, and calm. Is, I guess, twofold. The first is to walk the site, as I said, what the architecture needs to be. And the second would be have a detailed interview in person or on the phone with my clients. In one of my very first phone calls is ask them to describe their typical day, the starting point for our space planning process. Made in India is great. I'm not sure about the government initiative per se, but I think India is home to some of the most beautiful crafts and also very, very skilled craftsmen. We all know how these crafts are slowly dying. I just recently read about this particular town where there's only one craftsman left, block printing. So I think that, more and more made in India focus can help us protect these crafts and really help these very talented craftsmen prosper. Most challenging, maybe I would say, would be this apartment where I'm at. I don't know if you can kind of look, but this is apartment building. So it was built by the British in the 19th century. It's 100 years old. And it's actually owned by the government because it's a listed historic property. And I wanted to renovate. So we rent from the government because, the government doesn't really allow private ownership of historic properties. So I had to go through a whole application process and I wanted to knock down walls. So again, I don't know if you can see, but this space is like an open living room with an open kitchen. So I just broke down all the walls between the living room, dining, and the kitchen and made it into this. In front of me is actually another big set of windows. So we just had to go through a pretty tedious application process with the government, trying to convince them that it's okay to break down walls in a 100-year-old apartment building. Lighting, I think it's one of those design elements that is somewhat of an afterthought a lot of times. Home, where just shut off all the overhead lighting, the harsh lighting in your home, and bring in a few lamps. And if the light is too strong, use like a scarf or something to dim the light. And I think that just gives the space an instant makeover. One of the things I've realized is that people, tie design and architecture to a luxury. Right? And which is some things that if it's designed, then it's going to be expensive. Like stay away from architects when they're building their homes. So they, almost feel like I'll just take a few ideas from here, there, I'll use Pinterest, and then I'll use my contractor to actually build it because he's the one who's going to build it anyways. Architecture and architects are going to make projects more expensive is a big roadblock when it comes to good architecture being more commonly prevalent. Big on social media. I don't like to look at my phone all the time. I believe in just being in the environment where I am and really observing the sights and sounds. So I hate just looking at my phone and scrolling, which seems to be the case, in today's world. But at the same time, I think during this COVID, where you can actually find a community. So I have, fortunately, been able to connect with a couple of like-minded people. What I started doing is that, just people I have I've not known through anyone or anywhere. But because we have common interests and, we constantly keep liking the same thing, I have actually made an effort to connect with them offline. The site, I think that's the most important thing. Like, let's not build things, just because we like the form or we want to experiment with a certain, type of architecture. The architecture must be responsive to the site. So that's number one. And then, we should also try to stay within the budget. I think we do get, a lot of bad, reputation, because most projects kind of go, over budget. Also, like, find your voice. A lot of times there will be a lot of voices throughout the design process in terms of clients, their families, their friends of friends, which can really sway the design process. And I think that leads to a lot of frustration amongst most architects and designers. We need to be very confident about our own voice and about our own perspective towards design and not get swayed by external factors. I am currently binge watching Top Chef on Netflix. The old seasons, like the very first few seasons. A pretty shy person. So yeah, I'll have to be really drunk to go sing, a karaoke song. I think it could be anything from Pearl Jam, or another very, very big favorite of mine is the song called Lost Stars by Adam Levine from this wonderful movie called Begin Again. Why people would still buy water in plastic bottles, why people would still use polythene bags, when having a replacement with you in the form of a reusable, cloth bag or a reusable water bottle is just so easy. So yeah, it would have to be stop using single-use plastic, please. Been doing really well. I mean, I actually attended the event, I believe a few years back when my friends, Madhav and Vaibhav Dimri from Anagram were speaking, and another friend of mine who was running Beautiful Homes at that time had a booth. So I attended that event. I actually brought, I think Zoe, my older daughter, was a year and a half or something. Of your after parties and at the exhibition space, and Zoe was crawling everywhere, and I had whatever. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I think I met very many interesting people. We won an award through ID, which was really great. So thank you so much for that, and wonderful platform for the architecture community in India.